Hey guys, it's Mike Dunlap. Welcome to HoopsHabit.com's Eastern Conference Atlantic Division preview. This is the division with the Boston Celtics, New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, Toronto Raptors, and Brooklyn Nets. Let's get started. The Toronto Raptors had a disappointing year in 2011-2012. They finished just 23-43, fourth place in the division. This year, they've definitely gotten better. They've been waiting for Jonas Valanciunas to come over from Europe. They finally are getting him. They traded for Kyle Lowry. He's going to be the heir apparent to Jose Calderon in this offense. He's going to help both on the offensive and on the defensive end. DeMar DeRozan's had another year to mature. Andrea Bargnani is getting better. This team is on the rise. However, the other four teams in the division just did too much and passed them up. This year, I see the Toronto Raptors finishing 32-50, fifth place in the Atlantic Division. Their time is coming, it's just not this year. The Philadelphia 76ers made a big splash this year, bringing in Andrew Bynum from the Los Angeles Lakers. Assuming he re-signs, he'll be their franchise cornerstone for at least the next half of a decade. Last year, this team went 35-31, good for third place in the Atlantic Division and eighth in the Eastern Conference. They knocked off number one seed, the Chicago Bulls, without Derrick Rose, but that's another story, got to the second round, and took the Boston Celtics to 7 games. However, this is a much different team now. They've lost their heart and soul in Andre Iguodala, they lost Elton Brand, and they lost their leading scorer and spark off the bench in Lou Williams. They did bring in a couple of guys, Jason Richardson and Darrell Wright, who are going to spread the floor for Bynum and allow him to maneuver in the paint. The key for me is Evan Turner. Can he finally step it up and look like the guy he was at Ohio State? He was an electric scorer, an excellent rebounder, and a good defender. Last year he had the decent rebounding numbers. He was a very good defender, but his shooting was horrible. Let's see if he can come around and do it this year. I've got the Philadelphia 76ers going 41-41, good for fourth place in the Atlantic Division, and narrowly missing out on the playoffs. The New York Knicks finished second in the Atlantic Division last year with a 36-30 record. That got them the number 7 seed in the Eastern Conference, which unfortunately meant a trip to Miami. That didn't go so well, and they were out in the first round again. This year, they've brought in some talent to try to help out the bench. You've got Jason Kidd, Marcus Camby, Kurt Thomas coming in to try to shore up that bench. You've got your mainstays of Carmelo Anthony, Amare Stoudemire, and Tyson Chandler, who are the core of this team, both financially and on the court. If they can stay together and gel as a unit, they're gonna be dangerous, but they need a point guard to bring it all together. It looked like Jeremy Lin might be the answer, but then when his contract was not matched by James Dolan and he went to Houston, they went a different direction and brought in an old name, Raymond Felton. Raymond Felton, the last time he was in New York, performed really, really well. Then he sulked a little bit when he got traded to Denver. Then he went to Portland and played terribly. Hopefully for Knicks fans, it's just a case of being unhappy. Hopefully if he's happy back in New York, they're going to be a really dangerous team and nobody will want to face them in the playoffs. I've got them going 46-36 this year, good for third place in the Atlantic Division, and probably tops on the list of teams nobody wants to face in the playoffs. The Brooklyn Nets are an interesting story. Last year, as the New Jersey Nets, they finished 22-44, dead last in the Atlantic Division. They did have Darren Williams, Gerald Wallace, Chris Humphries, and Brook Lopez on that team, but here's the thing. One or another was hurt at any given time. They didn't get a chance to play together. Bring in Joe Johnson, which I don't care what you think about his salary. The fact is, the guy's a stud. He is a 6'8" shooting guard. He can get his shot off over anyone. His defense is vastly underrated, and he's used to putting the ball up in the clutch. You need players like that. The combination of Darren Williams and Joe Johnson means you can't just key on one player late in games. That's going to be huge for them. If there's a problem with the Nets, it's going to be the bench. their depth is suspect. You got Marshawn Brooks coming off the bench, a good young player who can score in bunches. They just signed Andre Blatch, which is going to be huge for them because their front court is really thin. You've got Reggie Evans backing up at power forward and probably at center. That's trouble. If Blatch can slide over and play some center when Lopez is out, they're going to be okay. Any injuries to their front line, they're going to be in trouble. If they can stay healthy, I've got the Brooklyn Nets finishing second in the Atlantic Division at 48-34. They're going to make some noise, and similar to the Miami Heat of 2 years ago, I see them going far in the playoffs and maybe next year winning it all. The Boston Celtics won the Atlantic Division last year with a 39-27 record. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals and had the Miami Heat on the ropes down 3-2, but eventually lost the next 2 games. This year, even though they lost the most prolific three-point shooter in NBA history in Ray Allen, they actually got better. Taking Allen's place is Jason Terry. This is a guy who has hit big shots in big games for championship teams. That's huge. Courtney Lee and a returning, healthy Jeff Green are going to add some athleticism on the wings. That's something they lacked last year and were exposed against LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. This year, with Rajon Rondo as a triple-double threat every single night, Kevin Garnett, his intensity just resonates throughout his team, the crowd, wherever they go, and Paul Pierce, who is a warrior, and even though he's on the downside of his career, he can still get it done when it counts. I've got the Boston Celtics finishing 50-32, first in the Atlantic Division. I wouldn't be surprised to see a rematch in the Eastern Conference Finals between the Heat and the Celtics, which would be a tremendous knockdown, drag-out, 7-game battle.